The billionaire's son had only 3 months to live, but when the poor little girl heard about it, what she did next left the powerful man completely speechless and in tears. No one could believe it. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. The elevator doors opened with a soft whisper, revealing the marble-clad 42nd floor of Harrison Medical Tower. Michael Harrison stepped out, his Armani suit perfectly pressed despite the exhaustion weighing down his broad shoulders. At 32, he commanded a business empire worth $3 billion, but today he felt like the poorest man alive. "Mr. Harrison," Dr. Patricia Chen greeted him with that careful expression doctors wore when delivering devastating news. "Thank you for coming in so quickly." Michael's heart hammered against his ribs as he followed her down the pristine hallway. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan sprawled beneath them like a kingdom he no longer cared to rule. Nothing mattered except the 7-year-old boy waiting in the pediatric wing, his son, Tommy. "The latest test results came back this morning, Doctor," Chen said, settling behind her mahogany desk. "Michael, I wish I had better news, but Tommy's condition has progressed faster than we anticipated." The words hit him like physical blows. Acute myeloid leukemia, a rare, aggressive form that had already claimed too many young lives. "How long?" His voice cracked despite his efforts to stay strong. 3 months, maybe less. Dr. Chen's professional mask slipped, revealing the pain she felt for every patient she couldn't save. "We've exhausted every conventional treatment. The bone marrow registry hasn't found a match, and his body isn't responding to the experimental protocols." Michael gripped the arms of his leather chair, his knuckles white. 3 months, 90 days to watch his beautiful boy fade away. The same son who still believed his daddy could fix anything, who drew pictures of superheroes with his father's face, who whispered, "I love you to the moon and back" every single night. "There has to be something else," Michael pleaded, his billionaire's confidence crumbling. "Money is no object. I'll fund any research, any treatment, anywhere in the world." Dr. Chen shook her head slowly. "Michael, sometimes medicine has limits that even unlimited resources can't cross." 2 hours later, Michael sat in his Bentley outside St. Mary's Children's Hospital, unable to face going home to his empty mansion. His wife Sarah had left 6 months ago, unable to cope with Tommy's diagnosis. "I can't watch him die," she'd sobbed, before disappearing into a new life in California. Now it was just Michael and Tommy against the world, and the world was winning. As he stared through the windshield, something caught his eye. A small blonde girl, maybe 7 years old, stood on the corner with a cardboard tray of homemade candies. Her clothes were worn but clean, her shoes held together with duct tape. Despite the October chill, she smiled brightly at every passerby, her voice carrying across the street. "Fresh candy. Help a girl save for school supplies." Michael watched her for 10 minutes, mesmerized by her relentless optimism. Even when most people walked past without acknowledging her existence, she never stopped smiling. There was something familiar about her determination, something that reminded him of Tommy's own fierce spirit. But what could a poor street vendor possibly understand about his world of private jets and penthouse apartments? What could she know about the agony of watching your child slip away doctor by doctor, test by test, hope by hope? As Michael finally started his engine, he had no idea that this ragged little girl with the bright smile was about to change everything. He didn't know that behind her cheerful exterior lay a heart that understood loss better than any child ever should. And he certainly couldn't imagine that within 24 hours, this same girl would make him an offer that would bring a grown billionaire to his knees. Lucy Martinez had been standing on that corner for 3 weeks now, ever since Mrs. Henderson from the apartment next door taught her how to make peppermint candies. At 7 years old, Lucy understood money in a way most children never should. Every dollar meant the difference between electricity and darkness, between dinner and an empty stomach. "One more dollar and I can buy those school crayons," she whispered to herself, watching another businessman walk past without a glance. Her blonde hair, inherited from her Irish mother, caught the afternoon sunlight as she repositioned her cardboard tray. The small apartment she shared with her grandmother Rosa was just 6 blocks away, but it felt like a different universe from the gleaming medical towers surrounding her. Rosa worked double shifts as a hospital cleaner, her arthritic hands scrubbing floors in the very building where wealthy families received the best care money could buy. "Mija," Rosa had said that morning, her weathered face creased with worry, "you don't have to do this. We'll find another way for your school supplies." But Lucy remembered the shame of being the only child in class without proper materials, the teacher's pitying look, the way other children whispered behind her back. She'd learned early that pride was sometimes all poor people had left. As the afternoon wore on, Lucy's feet ached in her 2 small shoes. She'd outgrown them months ago, but new shoes weren't in the budget. Nothing ever was, not since Daddy died. The memory hit her like it always did, sudden and sharp. 6 months ago, her father Carlos had been strong enough to carry her on his shoulders. Then came the doctor visits, the hushed conversations between her parents, the way Mama cried in the bathroom when she thought no one was listening. "Acute myeloid leukemia," the doctor had said, using words Lucy didn't understand but felt in her bones. She'd watched her vibrant father shrink into a shadow, watched her mother work 3 jobs to pay for treatments that never came. When Carlos Martinez died, he took Lucy's childhood with him. Mama couldn't handle the grief and the bills, so she disappeared one night, leaving only a note. "Take care of our baby, Mama. I can't breathe in this world anymore." Now it was just Lucy and Grandma Rosa, 2 females against a world that seemed designed to break people like them. A black Bentley idled at the red light, and Lucy could see the driver, the same man she'd noticed yesterday. He looked sad, the kind of deep sadness that reminded her of Daddy's last days. Without thinking, she walked closer to his window. "Fresh peppermint candy, sir? Only 50 cents each, and they're made with real sugar, not the fake stuff." The man looked at her through the glass, and Lucy saw something in his eyes that made her chest tight. It was the same look Daddy used to get when he thought she wasn't watching, like he was carrying the weight of the entire world. The light turned green, and the Bentley drove away. But Lucy had the strangest feeling that she'd see that sad man again. And somehow she knew that when she did, everything would change. What she didn't know was that the man in the Bentley was about to discover that sometimes the smallest people carry the biggest hearts, and that a 7-year-old girl with 50-cent candies was about to teach a billionaire the true meaning of sacrifice. Michael couldn't stop thinking about the blonde girl with the candy tray. For 2 days he'd driven past that corner, and each time he saw her bright smile, something inside his chest loosened just a fraction. Today, he finally pulled over. "Good afternoon, sir." Lucy beamed as he approached, her enthusiasm genuine despite the cold October wind. "Would you like some peppermint candy? I made them myself this morning." Up close, Michael noticed details that broke his heart. Her jacket was too thin for the weather, her backpack held together with safety pins, but her eyes sparkled with the kind of hope he'd forgotten existed. "I'll take all of them," he said, pulling out his wallet. Lucy's eyes widened. "All of them? But, sir, that's 20 pieces. That's $10. "Keep the change," Michael said, handing her a $100 bill. Lucy stared at the money like it might disappear. "Sir, I can't make change for this. I only have $3 in my pocket." "I don't need change." Michael's voice was gentler than he'd used in months. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Lucy Martinez, she said, still clutching the bill with trembling hands. And you don't have to pity me, sir. I work for my money, fair and square. The dignity in her voice reminded Michael of himself at her age, when his own family had struggled before his father's business took off. I'm not pitying you, Lucy. I'm admiring you. It takes courage to work this hard. My grandma says honest work never hurt anybody, Lucy replied, carefully folding the $100 bill. She cleans offices downtown. Sometimes I help her on weekends. Michael felt a stab of recognition. His own grandmother had cleaned houses to help support their family. What do you want to be when you grow up? A doctor, Lucy said without hesitation, so I can help sick people get better. My daddy was sick and the doctors tried real hard, but... Her voice trailed off. I'm sorry about your father, Michael said, crouching down to her eye level. What was his name? Carlos Martinez. He was the best daddy in the whole world. He used to say that even when life knocks you down, you get back up and help somebody else stand too. Michael's throat tightened. He sounds like a wise man. He was, Lucy said, her smile returning. That's why I sell candy here. Grandma Rosa works so hard and I want to help. Plus I'm saving for college. Daddy said education is the one thing nobody can ever take away from you. As Michael walked back to his car, Lucy's words echoed in his mind. Here was a child who'd lost everything, but still believed in helping others. Meanwhile, he had every resource imaginable and felt completely powerless. Sir, Lucy called after him, I don't even know your name. Michael, he called back. Michael Harrison. Lucy waved enthusiastically. Thank you, Mr. Michael. You're an angel. If only she knew, Michael thought as he drove away, that angels were supposed to help people, not watch helplessly as their children slipped away day by day. But something had shifted in that brief conversation. For the first time in months, Michael had felt something other than despair. This remarkable little girl had reminded him that courage came in all sizes, and that sometimes the people with the least had the most to give. Tomorrow he would learn just how true that was. Michael couldn't sleep that night. Lucy's words about wanting to become a doctor to help sick people kept circling through his mind. There was something about her determination, her pure heart, that reminded him of what he'd forgotten in his desperate fight to save Tommy. The next morning he found himself driving to that same corner again. Lucy was there, as always, setting up her candy tray with the careful precision of someone who took their work seriously. "Mr. Michael," she called out, her face lighting up. "You came back." "I couldn't stay away," he admitted, surprised by his own honesty. "Lucy, can I ask you something? Why do you work this corner instead of somewhere with more foot traffic?" Lucy pointed toward the medical building. "Because of them," she said simply. "The people going in and out of that big hospital, they're scared. I remember being scared when Daddy was sick. Sometimes a smile and something sweet can make the scary feeling go away, even just for a minute." Michael's chest constricted. This 7-year-old girl had more wisdom about healing than most adults he knew. "That's very thoughtful of you. Daddy taught me that. When he was getting his treatments, he always brought extra candy for the other patients, said sharing sweetness doubled it." Lucy's eyes grew distant. "He was in that building for 3 months before he went to heaven." "Which building?" Michael asked, though something in his gut already knew the answer. "Harrison Medical Tower," Lucy said, pointing to the gleaming structure behind them. "The cancer floor. Daddy said it was the fanciest place he'd ever been, with doctors who were real smart. They tried everything to save him." Michael felt the world tilt. His own medical center, his foundation's research floors. The same place where Tommy was fighting for his life. "What kind of cancer did your father have?" "The doctors called it AML, Lucy said, pronouncing each letter carefully. "Acute my-something leukemia. It's real rare," they said. "Daddy's body couldn't fight it, even with all the medicine." The words hit Michael like a physical blow. Acute myeloid leukemia, the exact same disease ravaging his son's small body. This brave little girl had watched her father die from the same illness that was stealing Tommy away. "Lucy," Michael said carefully, "I need to tell you something. I have a son who's very sick." "Oh no," Lucy said, her young face creasing with genuine concern. "What's wrong with him? He has the same disease your father had, AML. Lucy's candy tray slipped from her hands, peppermints scattering across the sidewalk. For a moment, she looked every bit as young and vulnerable as she was. Then, with the resilience that had carried her through unimaginable loss, she straightened her shoulders. "How old is your son?" she asked quietly. "7, just like you." Lucy nodded slowly, understanding passing between them like a current. "What's his name?" "Tommy. Thomas Michael Harrison." "Tommy," Lucy repeated, as if testing the name. "Is he scared?" Michael's voice broke. "Yes, we both are." Lucy began picking up her scattered candies, and Michael knelt to help her. As their hands touched, reaching for the same piece of peppermint, Lucy looked directly into his eyes. "Mr. Michael," she said with a seriousness that belonged to someone much older, "I think God brought us together for a reason." Michael wanted to tell her he'd stopped believing in God the day Tommy was diagnosed, but looking into Lucy's earnest face, filled with a faith that had survived the worst kind of loss, he found himself hoping she might be right. "Maybe he did," Michael whispered. Lucy smiled then, but it was different from her usual bright grin. This smile carried the weight of shared sorrow and the possibility of something more. "Tomorrow," she said, "I want to tell you a story about something my daddy said before he died. Something important." As Michael drove home that evening, he couldn't shake the feeling that tomorrow would change everything. He had no idea how right he was. Michael barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Lucy's face when she'd learned about Tommy's illness. There had been something in her expression, a flicker of recognition, as if she'd been waiting for this moment. At 10 the next morning, he was back at her corner. Lucy was there, but her usual bright energy seemed subdued. Her candy tray sat beside her, but she wasn't calling out to passers-by. "Lucy, are you all right?" She looked up at him, with eyes that held too much knowledge for a 7-year-old. "Mr. Michael, I need to tell you about the last thing my daddy said to me." Michael sat down on the concrete beside her, not caring about his expensive suit. "I'm listening." "It was 2 days before he died," Lucy began, her voice steady but soft. "The doctors said he didn't have much time left. I was sitting next to his bed, and he was so weak he could barely talk." Michael's throat tightened, remembering his own father's last days. He took my hand and said, "Lucy, baby, Daddy's going to have to go away soon, but I need you to promise me something." I said I'd promise him anything. Lucy paused, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "What did he ask you to promise?" "He said, if you ever meet another child who has what Daddy has, and if there's anything you can do to help them, you have to try, even if it's scary, even if it seems impossible, because love is the only thing stronger than this sickness." Michael felt his chest constrict. "Lucy, I promised him," she continued. "I didn't really understand what he meant then, but now I do." She turned to face him fully. "Mr. Michael, I want to help Tommy." "Sweetheart, that's very kind, but no, you don't understand." Lucy's voice carried a determination that stopped his words. "Daddy told me something else that last day, something the doctors told him." Michael waited, sensing they were approaching something enormous. He said the doctors explained that if someone in his family had been a match for him, they could have done something called a bone marrow transplant. But Mama and me, we weren't matches. The doctors looked everywhere, but they couldn't find one. "Lucy, where are you going with this?" Lucy stood up, her small frame somehow seeming larger. Yesterday, after you left, I went to see Grandma Rosa at the hospital. I told her about Tommy, and I asked her to help me understand something. What did you ask her? I asked her if kids could be bone marrow donors. And she said yes, if they're healthy and if they're a match. Lucy's eyes blazed with purpose. Mr. Michael, I want to get tested to see if I can help Tommy. Michael's world stopped. Lucy, no, absolutely not. I can't ask you to. You're not asking, I'm offering. Lucy's voice carried the same authority her father must have had. Daddy died because nobody could help him. But maybe I can help Tommy. Maybe that's why God let me meet you. Lucy, bone marrow donation is a serious medical procedure. It's painful, and there are risks. Is Tommy going to die without it? The question hung between them like a blade. Michael couldn't lie to her, not when she was offering something so profound. The doctors say he has 3 months. Then we don't have time to waste, Lucy said with breathtaking simplicity. My daddy couldn't be saved, but maybe Tommy can be. Maybe all that sadness can turn into something good. Michael stared at this extraordinary child, this 7-year-old who was offering to endure pain to save a boy she'd never met. Lucy, I need you to understand what you're saying. Bone marrow donation involves needles, surgery, recovery time. Mr. Michael, Lucy interrupted, did you know that when my daddy was dying, he was more worried about me and Mama than about himself? He said that's what love does. It makes you brave for other people. Michael felt tears he'd been holding back for months finally break free. Your father raised an incredible daughter. So I can get tested? Lucy asked, bouncing slightly on her toes with nervous energy. Lucy, even if you wanted to, the chances of you being a match are... But there's a chance. Michael looked into her hopeful face and felt something he hadn't experienced in months. The possibility of a miracle. There's a chance. Lucy clapped her hands together. Then let's find out. When can we do the test? As Michael looked at this brave, generous child who was willing to undergo medical procedures to save his son, he realized that sometimes angels appeared in the most unexpected forms, and sometimes they came carrying peppermint candies and hearts big enough to change the world. I'll call the hospital right now, he said, his voice thick with emotion he could no longer contain. Dr. Patricia Chen stared at Michael across her desk, her expression a mixture of shock and professional concern. Michael, are you absolutely certain about this? You're asking me to test a 7-year-old girl who has no family connection to Tommy. I've never been more certain of anything in my life, Michael replied, his hand resting protectively on Lucy's shoulder. She sat beside him in the oversized leather chair, her feet dangling, but her posture radiating determination. Hello, Dr. Chen, Lucy said politely. Mr. Michael told me you're the doctor taking care of Tommy. Thank you for trying to help him. Dr. Chen's expression softened as she looked at Lucy. You're very welcome, sweetheart, but I need to make sure you understand what you're volunteering for. Bone marrow testing involves blood draws, and if you're a match, the donation procedure is quite serious. I know, Lucy said simply. My daddy had this same sickness. I watched him get lots of needles and tests. I'm not scared. Lucy, Dr. Chen leaned forward. Even if you are a match, which statistically is very unlikely, the donation process would require you to be in the hospital for several days. You'd have to take medicine that might make you feel sick, and then have a procedure where we extract the marrow from your hip bones. Michael watched Lucy's face carefully, ready to stop this entire conversation if he saw even a flicker of fear or doubt. Instead, her expression grew more resolute. Dr. Chen, can I ask you something? Lucy said. Of course. If I don't do this, will Tommy die? The directness of the question seemed to catch Dr. Chen off guard. Honey, Tommy is very sick. Without a bone marrow transplant, his prognosis is not good. That means he'll die, Lucy said matter-of-factly. My daddy died because nobody could help him, but maybe I can help Tommy. Doctor. Chen looked at Michael with a question in her eyes. He nodded almost imperceptibly. All right, Dr. Chen said. If your grandmother gives permission, we can do the initial blood test. But Lucy, I want you to understand that being a bone marrow match is incredibly rare. The chances of you being compatible with Tommy are less than 1 in a million. But there's still a chance? Lucy asked. Yes, there's still a chance. Lucy smiled for the first time that day. Then let's find out. 2 hours later, after Rosa Martinez had arrived at the hospital and given tearful permission for the testing, Lucy sat in the pediatric lab with her arm extended bravely. The phlebotomist, a gentle woman named Sandra, prepared to draw the blood needed for tissue typing. "You're very brave, Lucy," Sandra said as she tied the tourniquet around Lucy's thin arm. "My daddy said being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing even when you are scared." Lucy looked at Michael. "Right now I'm a little scared, but I'm still doing it." Michael squeezed her free hand. "Your father would be so proud of you." As Sandra drew the blood, Lucy chatted cheerfully about her school, her grandmother, and her dream of becoming a doctor someday. Michael marveled at her resilience. Here was a child who had lost everything, yet still had room in her heart to help others. "All done," Sandra announced, placing a colorful bandage over the injection site. "The results will take about 48 hours. As they prepared to leave, Dr. Chen pulled Michael aside. "I have to tell you, Michael, I've been practicing medicine for 20 years, and I've never seen anything like this. That little girl has something special." "I know," Michael said, watching Lucy show off her bandage to Rosa with pride. "The question is, will it be enough? Even if she's not a match, Doctor." Chen said quietly, "What she's doing for your family, for Tommy, it's extraordinary. Sometimes healing comes in ways we don't expect." That evening, as Michael tucked Tommy into bed, he told his son about Lucy for the first time. Tommy's pale face lit up with curiosity. "She wants to help me, but she doesn't even know me, Daddy." Sometimes the best people are the ones who help without expecting anything in return," Michael said, smoothing Tommy's thin hair. "Can I meet her?" Tommy asked. "If you want to, son. If you want to." As Tommy drifted off to sleep, Michael stood by the window of their penthouse, looking down at the city lights. Somewhere out there, a little girl with the heart of a warrior was sleeping too, having done something that most adults wouldn't dream of attempting. In 48 hours, they would know if Lucy Martinez was Tommy Harrison's miracle. But Michael already knew that regardless of the test results, this brave child had already changed their lives forever. The question was, would science catch up to the miracle of her heart? The call came at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Michael's phone buzzed on his nightstand, dragging him from a restless sleep. Dr. Chen's name flashed on the screen, and his heart immediately began racing. "Michael, Doctor." Chen's voice was carefully controlled, but he could hear something underneath, excitement mixed with disbelief. "I need you to come to the hospital immediately and bring Lucy." "The results are in." Michael's mouth went dry. "Yes, and Michael, you're going to want to sit down for this conversation." 30 minutes later, Michael and Lucy sat in Dr. Chen's office, Rosa's weathered hand gripping her granddaughter's shoulder. Lucy's legs swung nervously from the adult-sized chair, but her chin remained raised with characteristic determination. "Lucy," Dr. Chen began, "we ran your blood work through every test we have. We checked it 3 times because the results were so unprecedented." Michael's chest felt tight. "Just tell us, Doctor. Lucy is not just a match for Tommy. She's a perfect match. 10 out of 10 markers align perfectly. In 20 years of practice, I've never seen compatibility this precise between unrelated donors." The room fell into stunned silence. Rosa crossed herself and whispered a prayer in Spanish. Lucy looked confused. "What does that mean?" Lucy asked. "It means," Dr. Chen said gently, that your bone marrow could save Tommy's life. The compatibility is so perfect that his body would accept your donation as if it were his own. Lucy's face lit up like sunrise. Really? I can help him? But, Dr. Chen continued, and Michael heard the warning in her tone, this is where things get complicated. Lucy, your age presents some unique challenges. The hospital's ethics board will need to approve the procedure. There will be psychological evaluations, additional medical tests, and legal requirements. How long will all that take? Michael asked, his relief already turning to anxiety. 2 to 3 weeks, minimum, maybe longer. Michael's heart sank. Tommy doesn't have 3 weeks to wait for bureaucratic approval. I understand your urgency, Doctor. Chen said, I'm going to expedite everything I can. But Michael, there's something else, something I discovered when I was reviewing Lucy's medical history. What? Rosa asked, her voice tight with sudden worry. Lucy, when was your last doctor's visit? Lucy shrugged. A long time ago. We can't afford doctors unless it's really bad. Doctor. Chen opened Lucy's thin medical file. Based on the blood work, Lucy is slightly anemic and shows signs of nutritional deficiency. Before we can proceed with donation, we need to build up her strength. She'll need to take iron supplements and follow a specific diet for at least 2 weeks. Whatever she needs, Michael said immediately. Money is no object. Mr. Michael, Lucy interrupted, you don't have to. Yes, I do, Michael said firmly. Lucy, you're offering to save my son's life. Let me take care of you. Rosa wiped her eyes. Mihia, this man is offering to help us. Maybe it's okay to accept kindness sometimes. As they left the hospital that morning, Lucy tugged on Michael's sleeve. Can I meet Tommy now? I want to tell him we're going to fight this sickness together. Michael looked down at this extraordinary child who had just learned she held his son's life in her small hands and felt his throat tighten with emotion. Yes, Lucy. I think it's time you two met. But as they walked toward the elevator that would take them to the pediatric oncology ward, Michael couldn't shake Dr. Chen's warning about the ethics board and legal complications. In his world of billion-dollar deals, he'd learned that the most dangerous obstacles were often the ones that came wrapped in bureaucracy. He had no idea how right he was about to be. Tommy Harrison sat propped up in his hospital bed, his Star Wars pajamas hanging loose on his thin frame. His once thick brown hair had fallen out months ago, but his eyes still sparkled with the curiosity that had defined him since birth. Daddy said someone wants to help me, Tommy said as Michael entered with Lucy and Rosa. Is that her? Lucy stepped forward, suddenly shy. Meeting the boy she was trying to save felt bigger than any blood test or doctor visit. Hi, Tommy, I'm Lucy. You're littler than I thought you'd be, Tommy said with 7-year-old honesty. I'm the same age as you, Lucy replied, moving closer to his bed. Your daddy told me you like superheroes. Tommy's eyes lit up. I love them, do you? My favorite is Wonder Woman because she's brave, and she helps people even when it's scary. Lucy pulled a slightly crumpled comic book from her backpack. I brought you something. Tommy accepted the worn copy of Wonder Woman, Champion of Hope, with reverent hands. This is yours? It was my daddy's when he was little. He gave it to me before he went to heaven. Lucy's voice remained steady. I want you to have it. Michael watched the interaction with a tight throat. 2 children who had faced impossible circumstances, connecting over a superhero story. There was something profoundly right about the moment. Your daddy went to heaven? Tommy asked, his voice gentle. Yeah, he had the same sickness you have, but the doctors didn't find anyone to help him in time. Lucy sat on the edge of Tommy's bed. That's why I want to help you, so you don't have to go to heaven yet. Tommy studied Lucy's face with the seriousness that sick children develop too early. Aren't you scared? Daddy said helping me would hurt. A little bit, Lucy admitted. But you know what my daddy told me? He said being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing anyway. That's exactly what my daddy tells me about getting treatments, Tommy said, his eyes widening with recognition. See, our daddies are smart. Lucy grinned. Want to see something cool? She pulled out her phone, an ancient flip phone Michael had bought her the day before so they could stay in contact. My grandma Rosa taught me how to make the best paper airplanes. Want to learn? For the next hour, Michael and Rosa watched as Lucy and Tommy folded newspaper into increasingly elaborate flying machines. Tommy laughed more than he had in months, and Lucy seemed to forget about her own fears in the joy of making a new friend smile. Lucy, Tommy said as they tested their latest creation, after you help me get better, will you still be my friend? Forever and always, Lucy promised. We're going to beat this sickness together, and then we're going to have so many adventures. I'll teach you how to make my special peppermint candy, and you can show me all your superhero movies. Really? Even the scary ones? Especially the scary ones. Remember, I'm not afraid of being brave. As visiting hours ended, Tommy hugged Lucy goodbye, a careful, gentle hug that acknowledged his fragility but celebrated their newfound friendship. Tommy, Lucy whispered in his ear, I promise you're going to be okay. My daddy watches over me from heaven, and now he's going to watch over you too. In the elevator going down, Michael finally spoke. Lucy, what you did up there, Tommy hasn't smiled like that in months. He's a good kid, Lucy said simply. He deserves to grow up and have a real life. So do you, Rosa said quietly, speaking for the first time since they'd entered Tommy's room. As they walked through the hospital lobby, Michael's phone rang. Dr. Chen's name appeared on the screen, and something in her tone when she answered made his blood run cold. Michael, we have a problem. The hospital's ethics board has some concerns about Lucy's donation. I need you back here immediately. Michael looked at Lucy, who was still glowing from her time with Tommy, completely unaware that bureaucracy was about to threaten the miracle they'd just discovered. We'll be right there, Michael said, but his mind was already racing toward the fight he knew was coming. The hospital conference room felt like a courtroom, with Lucy sitting small and confused between Michael and Rosa, while a panel of 5 board members reviewed her case file. Dr. Helen Morrison, the hospital's chief ethics officer, led the questioning with the cold efficiency of someone who dealt with life and death decisions daily. Lucy, Doctor, Morrison began, do you understand that bone marrow donation is a major medical procedure that could have serious complications? Yes, ma'am, Lucy answered politely. Dr. Chen explained it all to me. And you understand that you might feel very sick afterward, and there's a small chance you could be hurt? Lucy nodded. But there's a much bigger chance that Tommy could die if I don't help him. Dr. Morrison made a note. Lucy, some people are concerned that a 7-year-old child cannot truly consent to such a serious procedure. They worry that you might not fully understand what you're agreeing to. Michael started to speak, but Dr. Morrison held up a hand. I'm sorry, Mr. Harrison, but we need to hear from Lucy directly. Lucy straightened in her chair, and Michael recognized the posture she'd had when she first offered to help Tommy, determined, dignified, unshakable. Dr. Morrison, Lucy said, her voice clear and strong, I watched my daddy die from this same disease. I know exactly what happens when people can't get help. I've seen how much it hurts, and I've seen how sad families get. But Lucy, donating bone marrow will also hurt. For a few days, Lucy interrupted, something she'd never done to an adult before. Tommy's hurting will last forever if he dies. My daddy's hurt lasted forever. The room fell silent. Board member Dr. James Wesley leaned forward. Lucy, what if we told you there might be other donors who could help Tommy? Adults who could handle the procedure better? Are there other donors? Lucy asked. Dr. Wesley hesitated. Well, not right now, but Then you're asking me to let Tommy die, because maybe someday someone else might help him. Lucy's voice remained respectful but firm. That's not what heroes do. Michael felt his chest swell with pride, but also with dread. The board members were exchanging glances that didn't look promising. Doctor, Morrison consulted her notes. Mr. Harrison, I understand you've offered to pay for Lucy's medical care and any complications that might arise. That's correct. Some board members are concerned that this could be seen as coercion, offering financial incentives to a low-income family. Rosa spoke for the first time, her accented English carefully measured. Doctor, my granddaughter didn't know this man had money when she offered to help. She saw a sad father and a sick child, and her heart told her to act. That's how we raised her. Mrs. Martinez, we appreciate that, but— No! Rosa stood up, her small frame somehow commanding the room. You listen to me. I cleaned these floors for 15 years. I've seen rich families and poor families crying in these hallways when their children are sick. Grief doesn't care about money. Rosa's voice grew stronger. My granddaughter lost her father to this disease. She knows what death looks like, what hope looks like, what love looks like. Don't you dare tell me she's too young to choose love. Dr. Morrison seemed taken aback by Rosa's passionate defense. Mrs. Martinez, we're simply trying to protect Lucy's best interests. Lucy's best interest is living in a world where people help each other, Rosa replied, where children don't have to die because adults are too scared to let someone be brave. Board member Dr. Sandra Kim, who had been quiet throughout the meeting, finally spoke. I have to ask the difficult question, Lucy. What if the procedure doesn't work? What if Tommy dies anyway, and you went through all that pain for nothing? Lucy considered this seriously. Then at least I'll know I tried. At least Tommy will know someone cared enough to try. My daddy told me that love isn't about winning or losing. It's about showing up. Dr. Kim's eyes filled with tears. She quickly blinked away. Doctor, Morrison looked around the table at her colleagues. We'll need to deliberate. Mr. Harrison, we'll have our decision within 48 hours. As they filed out of the conference room, Michael felt a rage building inside him that he'd never experienced. These people were debating whether to let his son die, while the answer sat right beside him in the form of a courageous little girl. Mr. Michael, Lucy said as they waited for the elevator, are they going to say no? Michael looked down at her trusting face and made a decision that would change everything. Lucy, if they say no, we're going to find another way. I promise you that. What Michael didn't say was that he was already thinking about options that existed outside the comfortable boundaries of hospital ethics boards. Sometimes, when the system failed, good people had to find their own path to justice. The question was, how far was he willing to go to save his son? Michael paced his penthouse office at midnight, phone pressed to his ear as he spoke to the third private medical consultant he'd contacted that evening. If the hospital's ethics board denied Lucy's donation, he was prepared to take Tommy to Switzerland, Germany, or anywhere else that would allow the procedure. Mr. Harrison, Dr. Elizabeth Reyes said from her clinic in Mexico City, I understand your desperation, but taking Lucy out of the country for this procedure would create massive legal complications. Dr. Reyes, my son is dying. If legal complications are the worst thing that happens, I can live with that. But what about Lucy? What about her family? Medical tourism isn't— A soft knock interrupted Michael's conversation. He looked up to see Rosa Martinez standing in his doorway, her cleaning uniform still on from her late shift at the hospital. Rosa, how did you get up here? I still have my hospital ID card. Security recognizes me. Rosa looked exhausted but determined. Michael, we need to talk. He ended his call and gestured for Rosa to sit. If this is about taking Lucy out of the country, I want you to know I would never put her at risk. I've found excellent doctors who— Michael, stop. Rosa's voice was gentle but firm. "I need to tell you something I should have told you days ago." Something in her tone made Michael sit down. "What is it?" Rosa opened her worn purse and pulled out a faded envelope. "When Lucy's father was dying, he made me promise to give this to someone someday, someone who would understand." "I don't follow." Carlos was delirious near the end, talking about things that didn't make sense. But one day, he wrote this letter. He said it was for the father of another sick child, someone he'd never met but somehow knew existed. Michael stared at the envelope, his name written in shaky handwriting. "To the father who loves his son as much as I love Lucy." "Rosa, how could he have known?" "Just read it," Rosa whispered. Michael opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a single sheet of paper covered in the careful script of a dying man. "To the father reading this letter, my name is Carlos Martinez, and I am dying from AML. As I write this, my 7-year-old daughter Lucy is asleep in the chair next to my hospital bed, still believing her daddy might get better. I don't know your name or your son's name, but I know you exist. The doctors told me that AML is rare, but not so rare that Lucy and I are the only family fighting it. Somewhere out there is another father watching his child fade away, feeling as helpless as I feel right now. I want you to know that Lucy doesn't understand death yet, but she understands love. When I'm gone, she's going to need a purpose bigger than her grief. She's going to need to believe that all this pain can turn into something meaningful. If you're reading this, it means Lucy has found you and your son. It means she's offered to help in the only way she knows how, by giving pieces of herself to make someone else whole. Please let her help you, not because you need her, but because she needs to help you. My daughter has a heart that was born to heal others. Don't let the fear of adults stop her from becoming who she was meant to be. Tell her that her daddy's love lives on in every life she touches, every smile she brings, every hope she helps kindle. Take care of my baby girl, and let her take care of your boy. With love from one father to another, Carlos Martinez." Michael's vision blurred as he finished reading. He looked up at Rosa, who was crying silently. "He wrote this before he ever met us," Michael said, his voice breaking. "Before Lucy ever sold candy on that corner. Carlos always said he could sense things others couldn't," Rosa replied. "The nurses thought it was the medication, but I knew better. He had a gift." "Rosa, this changes everything. This letter proves Lucy's decision isn't impulsive or coerced. Her own father anticipated this moment." "More than that," Rosa said, standing up. "It proves that some things are meant to be. Some connections go deeper than chance." Michael clutched the letter to his chest. "I'm taking this to the ethics board tomorrow. They can't argue with a dying father's wishes." "But Michael," Rosa said as she reached the door, "what if they still say no?" Michael looked out at the city lights, thinking of Lucy's brave face and Tommy's fading strength. "Then we proceed anyway. Some things are too important to leave to committees." As Rosa left, Michael read Carlos's letter again. Tomorrow, he would present this final piece of evidence to the ethics board. But tonight, he finally understood that this wasn't just about medicine or procedures or legal permissions. This was about a father's dying wish, a daughter's inherited purpose, and the mysterious ways that love could transcend death itself. The question was, would it be enough to save them all? The emergency session of the hospital ethics board convened at 7 a.m. sharp. Michael sat with Lucy, Rosa, and a lawyer he'd hired overnight. Carlos's letter displayed on the conference table like a sacred text. Dr. Morrison read the letter aloud to the assembled board members, her professional composure cracking slightly as she reached Carlos's final words about love transcending death. "This is certainly moving, Doctor," Morrison said when she finished. "But Mr. Harrison, a letter from a deceased parent doesn't override our medical and legal obligations." "Dr. Morrison," Lucy spoke up, her voice clear in the hushed room. "May I say something?" "Of course, dear." Lucy stood up, somehow looking both very young and incredibly mature. "I've been thinking about what everyone's been saying about me being too little to make this choice." The board members leaned forward. "When my daddy was sick, I watched him make brave choices every single day. He chose to keep fighting even when it hurt. He chose to stay positive for me and Mama even when he was scared. He chose to write that letter even when his hands could barely hold a pen." Lucy's voice grew stronger. "Nobody told him he was too sick to make those choices. Nobody said he was too scared or too sad to know what was right. He made those choices because that's what love does. It helps you choose to help others even when you're hurting." And board member Dr. Kim wiped her eyes. "Lucy, that's beautiful, but—" "I'm not finished," Lucy said politely but firmly. "You keep talking about protecting me from making a choice I might regret. But what about protecting me from not making this choice?" The room fell silent. "If Tommy dies because you wouldn't let me help him, I'll have to live with that forever. I'll have to know that I could have saved my friend, but grown-ups wouldn't let me be brave." Lucy's voice cracked slightly. "That would hurt way more than any medicine or needles ever could." Dr. Wesley cleared his throat. "Lucy, what if we told you that we found another potential donor, an adult who could help Tommy?" Michael's head snapped up. "What? Who?" Dr. Morrison consulted her notes. "Yesterday evening we received notice that a 34-year-old man in Los Angeles tested positive as a potential match for Tommy. He's agreed to donate if needed." Michael felt the world tilt. How close a match? 8 out of 10 markers. It's good, but not as perfect as Lucy's match. "But it's an adult," Dr. Wesley added. "Less risk, fewer legal complications." Lucy looked stricken. "You found someone else?" "Honey," Dr. Morrison said gently, "this means you don't have to go through the procedure. You've done your part just by offering." "No!" Lucy said, her voice rising. "You don't understand. Tommy is my friend. I promised him we'd fight this together. You can't just replace me with some stranger." Michael studied the board members' faces and recognized the strategy. They'd found a way to deny Lucy's donation while appearing to protect her interests. "What's the success rate difference?" Michael asked. Dr. Morrison hesitated. "Lucy's perfect match would give Tommy a 94% chance of successful engraftment. The adult donor would provide about 78%. So you're asking me to choose a lesser chance of saving my son's life to avoid paperwork complications," Michael said, his voice deadly quiet. "Mr. Harrison, a 78% success rate is still very good." "Dr. Morrison," Michael stood up, "if this were your child, would you choose 78% when 94% was available?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Lucy tugged on Michael's sleeve. "Mr. Michael, what if we let the other man donate, and it doesn't work? Then would they let me try?" Dr. Morrison shook her head. "Lucy, if the first transplant fails, Tommy would be too weak for a second attempt. There's only one chance." "Then it has to be me," Lucy said with devastating simplicity, "because I'm the best chance." The board members looked at each other, the weight of their decision visible on their faces. "We need 5 more minutes to deliberate," Dr. Morrison announced. As the board members huddled in whispered conversation, Lucy slipped her small hand into Michael's. "Mr. Michael, whatever they decide, I want you to know something." "What's that, sweetheart?" "My daddy didn't write that letter just for you. He wrote it for me, too. He wanted me to know that when I found you and Tommy, I'd found my purpose." Lucy's eyes shone with unshed tears. "Even if they say no, I'll always be glad I tried to help." Michael squeezed her hand, knowing that in 5 minutes their lives would change forever, one way or another. Dr. Morrison cleared her throat. "We've reached our decision." "Doctor—" Morrison's hands trembled slightly as she looked at Lucy's determined face. After extensive deliberation, the board has voted unanimously to approve Lucy Martinez as Tommy Harrison's bone marrow donor. The room erupted. Rosa burst into tears. Michael felt his knees nearly buckle, and Lucy simply smiled, the same bright, determined smile she'd worn when selling candies on the street corner. However, Dr. Morrison continued, we have conditions. Lucy will have the finest pediatric team in the country monitoring her every moment. Mr. Harrison, your foundation will fund a new protocol for pediatric bone marrow donation that ensures no child donor faces unnecessary risks. And Lucy, she looked directly at the little girl, you'll have the right to change your mind at any point, no questions asked. I won't change my mind, Lucy said confidently. Tommy and I made a promise to fight this together. 3 days later, in adjoining operating rooms at Harrison Medical Center, 2 7-year-olds prepared to make medical history. Lucy lay on her hospital gurney, no longer the nervous child who'd sold candies for school supplies, but a young hero about to save a life. Are you scared, Mija? Rosa whispered, holding Lucy's hand as the anesthesia team prepared her. A little bit, Lucy admitted. But Daddy's with me. I can feel him. In the next room, Tommy squeezed his father's hand. Lucy's really doing this for me, isn't she, Daddy? She really is, son. You have an angel watching over you. Will I be strong enough to play with her after this? Michael's throat tightened. You'll be strong enough to do anything you want, Tommy. Anything at all. The procedure took 4 hours. Michael paced the family waiting room while Rosa prayed her rosary, each bead a whispered request for both children's safety. Doctor. Chen emerged at 2:47 p.m., still in her surgical scrubs, her face radiant with exhaustion and triumph. Both children came through beautifully, she announced. Lucy's donation was textbook perfect, and Tommy's body is already responding to the new marrow. His white blood cell count is climbing faster than we've ever seen. Michael sank into a chair, overwhelmed by relief. And Lucy? Sleeping peacefully. She'll be sore for a few days, but she's already asking when she can see Tommy. 2 weeks later, Tommy's room had been transformed into something resembling a carnival. Balloons covered every surface. Get-well cards from strangers across the country papered the walls, and Lucy sat cross-legged on his bed, teaching him to make paper airplanes while he regained his strength. "Look, Tommy! This one's called the Superman Special," Lucy said, folding newspaper with expert precision. "My daddy taught me this one right before he went to heaven." Tommy's hair was starting to grow back in fuzzy patches, and his cheeks had the first hint of color they'd shown in months. "Lucy, when I get out of here, will you teach me how to make your peppermint candy?" "Of course, and I'll take you to meet my friend Mrs. Henderson, who taught me. She's going to love you." Michael watched from the doorway, marveling at how 2 children who'd faced the worst life could offer had found joy in paper airplanes and candy recipes. Dr. Chen appeared beside him. "His latest blood work is remarkable," she said quietly. "The engraftment is 100% successful. Tommy's body has accepted Lucy's marrow as if it were his own. In 6 months, he'll be completely healthy. And Lucy? Lucy is healing beautifully. But Michael, what those children have given each other goes far beyond medicine. They've given each other hope." 3 months later, on a crisp December morning, Michael stood in the grand ballroom of the Harrison Foundation headquarters. Before him sat 200 of the city's most influential philanthropists, gathered for the inaugural fundraiser for the Carlos Martinez Pediatric Bone Marrow Program. "Ladies and gentlemen," Michael began, 3 months ago my son was dying. Today, he's in the 4th grade, learning multiplication tables and complaining about homework like any normal 7-year-old. Gentle laughter rippled through the audience. "He's alive because a little girl with a $40 jacket and a heart worth more than all the money in this room decided that love was stronger than fear. Lucy Martinez taught me that sometimes the people with the least to give have the most to offer. In the front row, Lucy sat between Rosa and Tommy, wearing her first ever formal dress, a simple blue affair that made her eyes sparkle. Tommy, his hair now thick and healthy, held her hand as his father continued. Tonight, we launch a program that will ensure no child donor ever faces the bureaucratic obstacles Lucy encountered. But more than that, we celebrate the truth Lucy taught us all, that miracles don't come from money or medicine alone. They come from the willingness to sacrifice for someone else's tomorrow. The applause was thunderous, but Lucy barely noticed. She was whispering something to Tommy that made him giggle. Later, as the evening wound down, Michael found Lucy and Tommy on the foundation's outdoor terrace, pointing out constellations in the winter sky. "That one's Daddy's star," Lucy was saying, indicating a particularly bright point of light. "He told me he'd always watch over me from there." Maybe he's watching over me too now," Tommy said thoughtfully. "I know he is. That's what daddies do. They take care of all the kids they love." Michael approached quietly. "What are you two plotting out here?" "We're making plans," Tommy announced. "When we grow up, we're going to be doctors together. Lucy's going to specialize in bones, and I'm going to do hearts." "Hearts are important," Lucy agreed seriously. "Mine got bigger when I met you." Michael knelt beside them, looking up at the same stars. "You know what the best part is? Your father would be so proud of both of you." "Both fathers," Lucy corrected gently. "Your daddy and my daddy. They're probably friends up there, talking about how their kids are going to change the world." As they sat together under the December sky, a billionaire, a former street vendor, and a boy who'd been given the gift of tomorrow, Michael realized that Lucy had been right from the very beginning. Sometimes God did bring people together for a reason. Sometimes miracles came wrapped in peppermint candy and delivered by 7-year-old angels who understood that love was indeed the only force stronger than death. And sometimes the smallest hands carried the biggest hearts, proving that heroes came in all sizes, especially the ones brave enough to give pieces of themselves so others could live whole. 6 months later, Tommy Harrison hit his first home run in Little League. Lucy Martinez was in the stands, cheering louder than anyone, knowing that her father's final wish had come true. Love had indeed proven stronger than sickness, and 2 children had found their purpose in healing the world, one brave act at a time.